Mr. Gerhardt, first of all, thank you very much for coming. And second of all, want to introduce you to, my name is Dr. Robert Menoff. I'm a retired criminal court psychologist. And this is Mr. Giano Amato. And we're going to be doing the questions and the interviewing on this panel. First of all, Veterans in Politics, I should have said this before, Veterans in Politics welcomes you here. And if you could, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is John Cardiff Gerhardt, born and raised in Salt Lake City. Got a finance degree from Westminster College. During that time, I was pursuing film acting, which landed me an agency in New York with some managers. So after graduating, I moved out there for a year. Long story short, I woke up to the corruption of the entertainment industry and the financial system. So after a year, I canceled my contract with my managers, left, basically lived out the back of a truck, and traveled the Midwest, California, New Mexico, Nevada and Utah. Woke up to, say, Bitcoin and its ability to overthrow the corrupt Federal Reserve. And since then, I've just been heavily invested in the crypto space, blockchain industry, and also got interested in politics when I saw the centralization of power with our educational system, our public safety, police force, and whatnot, being controlled by the Department of Public Safety, which is in turn chosen by the governor. And I saw some white-collar crime and started to piece together that the Federal Reserve could, in fact, be a Ponzi scheme for fiat currency and its ability to fund black markets in ways that, on a macro scale, degrade society. And that's where I found Ryan Bundy in 2018, who's running for governor as an independent. I saw the Republican, I saw the Democrat, and I didn't like what I saw. But when I saw Ryan Bundy, and I met him, I actually went to drive to meet him. I saw the Constitution framed in his living room, and from there I worked without pay, basically as a volunteer, but as a campaign manager to do the very best I could to help who I believed in essentially take authority over the state and set it right. So now I'm here running as an assemblyman, District 12, and for the legislative branch, I've got some things I'd like to share, but that's a good intro, so I'll leave it at that.
Basically, so you're neither a Democrat or a Republican. Are you an independent? Do you classify yourself as any form of political group?
So I've been no party affiliation, independent candidate since I've been here, and I guess a long story short is I applied to be a candidate as an independent,
right.
And then I switched to be a Democrat just because I wanted to vote in the primary,
right.
But then the day before the primary election, I switched to a Republican just because I realized that the superdelegates make it so that Democrats voting don't actually have a voice. They really don't have a fair election process. And then I went to the Trump rally, which was my third rally. So I align with Trump, especially Trump over the the Republican Party, the GOP, just because of his fight against corruption and what he stands for, which is incredible. But then after going to declare my candidacy, they said that I couldn't be a Republican running as an independent, so then I formally switched back to an independent.
They, meaning the Republican Party?
No, they meaning the election division.
And also, I believe Mr. Bundy was a Republican, was he not?
No party.
No party at all?
Yeah, because otherwise he would have had to run against Laxalt.
Right.
And so he didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gerhardt.
Gerhardt.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
So my first question is about criminal law reform. We got approximately 23,000 people from Nevada that are behind bars. Would you be up for some type of bill that would reform the criminal law here in Nevada?
Absolutely. In this briefcase here, I have the state constitution and all the markings I've made to it. I also have a new constitution, one that I would like to introduce to the legislature. So as far as criminal reform, the number one issue I would like to tackle is self-incrimination, or crimes where there are no victim, or crimes where the government is the victim. So self-abuse laws, or like, intoxication or marijuana or things like that.
Okay.
Non-violent crimes.
Okay. And how do you feel about right now? All the police here in Nevada are required to wear body cameras. How do you feel about the police officers not having to turn them over, or when they do turn them over to the district attorney not turning them over to the public right away?
That's absolutely wrong. The police force is supposed to protect and serve we the people, and the content of the state of Nevada belongs to the people of Nevada. Therefore, if they wear body cameras, which is good, we need video evidence, but the people need to be able to access that information. Now, if it's sensitive and you don't want this exposed to the world, to the foreign entities that could leverage this for malicious means, we need to have a process in which the people of Nevada can verify their citizenship, or their personhood, the fact that they are a person of Nevada, so that they can access what should be publicly accessible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then one other question on that. I guess so. I believe in transparency, but a lot of times the police officers, like let's say if the evidence is inculpatory or exculpatory. A lot of times, they won't hand over the video, or a lot of times, citizens get pulled over and they tell them to turn their cameras off. Do you believe that any officer, would you support a law, or would you create a law that would basically allow citizens to be able to record any type of police interaction?
The people have the right to record. Some would say they even have a duty. But one law I don't think would fix this type of mess that we currently have. So again, our framework, the structure in which our governance operates, is based on a constitution that was written in 1864. I don't exactly know who those founding fathers were, but I assume, based on what I've read, that they were Southerners escaping from the Civil War during Abraham Lincoln's fight to free the slaves and bring us together as one nation, with justice amongst the people, all the people. And that was really what the fight was about. But one law, again, I don't think is going to change the framework in which our government operates. I think the only way in which we can have a police department that truly understands what their job is, their constitutional duty, their, to serve the people, to do the very best for us, the people of Nevada, to make us safe, to make us secure, to make sure that we are able to fully realize our rights, our life, our liberty, is to reframe the Constitution at the very core. We would need a constitutional convention that would really, word by word, frame this government in a way that no one can misunderstand it. No one can take it out of context. No one can read old English or legalese and interpret it in a way that best serves them. Because our state constitution is inherently designed to be an extension of the United States Constitution. And the United States Constitution inherently was created to free us from tyranny, from the oppressive English, and to create sovereignty amongst states, nation states, in a union. So until we have that new constitution, followed by patriotic Nevadans who want to turn this state into something new, something real, something that it's supposed to be from the beginning, but probably never was from the very beginning. That is what we need to make changes like that, where the people can access, where the police will not put people down, not betray the people to serve their boss, their boss's boss, or their boss's boss's boss, who may not be doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay, and one last thing on that. One more thing is just a simple yes or no. Do you believe if somebody does not want a video to be shown, that they would be hiding something?
Do I believe if somebody, anybody, it could be from a citizen to law enforcement, if they did not want a video to be shown within 48 hours of a supposed crime or an incident that took place?
But on the other hand, I guess a lot of times, let's say if the officer, if somebody pulled out a weapon on an officer and the body camera shows it, they'll release the footage within 48 hours. But now if the other person does not have a weapon, sometimes we never get to see that footage. So it's just a simple yes or no. Do you think that there's something that they're hiding if they don't want to release the body cam, or no?
Do I think they're always going to be hiding something? If it's someone, now when you say someone, is that a police officer always?
Well,
or
no. It could be a citizen or it could be a police officer. So I believe in transparency. Mm-hmm. So my question is, do you think most likely somebody would be hiding something if they weren't to release a video camera after, if they weren't to release a video recording within 48 hours of a supposed crime that took place?
It depends. And I would say no, not always, mostly just because it could be out of fear. Someone just feels uncomfortable and just doesn't want whatever it is exposed, uncomfortable. But yeah, absolutely, there are circumstances where they definitely want to hide something you should not see, or it'll be incriminating for them.
Okay, great.
Thank you. In your bio, you have some major concerns about the school system in Nevada, specifically Clark County or Northern Nevada as well.
Again, the Constitution has an article for education.
Right.
It requires uniform mandatory attendance. We have surpassed that paradigm, mm-hmm. the structure of people going to school, getting their grades, and learning everything at the same time for the same subject nationwide. Nevada is one of the worst in terms of reports, school testing in the nation. And so,
Just to interrupt you.
yeah, please.
Basically, to identify the specific issues that you have a concern about. What are they?
Okay, so I graduated with a finance degree, 2014, and after that, I was basically an adult, right, on my own, and living my own life. And what I realized was I learned way more after college than I did in college. And the reason why is because we have an outdated system designed to manufacture human beings into single-skilled laborers who can get into essentially a factory or an office chair and do a work for the rest of their lives in order to secure some financial security in the form of a retirement or pension. And that no longer is feasible today. So yes, it's the whole state that I've got an issue with, because it's the Constitution I've got a problem with. The state constitution.
Right.
And what I would just like to see, simply put, is free markets. The ability for anyone to teach people to pay a la carte for their courses, and for things to be like all possible topics available. And what that looks like from what I've started to design is a hierarchy chart, or roots, right? You start off with the basics, art, math, science, communication, travel, and you get into things like spirituality and sexuality, and underneath those basic building blocks, those aren't all of them, but underneath those you web down into essentially roots, right? So under math you've got, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, geometry, other stuff like that, and you break it down so that if you had access to all of that in let's say a free market educational system, you go to essentially a government school, but there are not government teachers. A kid can go and see everything and start selecting all the stuff. And not just a kid, anybody, right? And we're talking like the Hispanics who want to learn English. We're talking about the kids of single mothers who want to learn about communication and security and self-defense. We're talking about grandmothers who need to cook, who want to learn about gardening. All of these topics can be available, and so what would really happen is a huge demand would be needed for teachers who can teach anything, and they wouldn't necessarily need the degree to teach. Instead, they would have a reputational score like Amazon or eBay. So if you go in, you teach, you get reviewed. Based on your reviews, that determines how much demand there is for your services and how much you can charge per course.
You have to, you identified some of the issues, but you said you had a plan to rectify the issues in the school board?
Simply put, break down the monopoly and deliver a free market.
Okay. Now, obviously we need highly qualified teachers here in Nevada. You say
ahead. Highly qualified.
Yes.
What is highly qualified?
Number one, an academic degree from a university or college.
No.
You don't agree with that?
No.
Okay. Let me ask you a question then. With medical doctors, would they have to attend university to become a medical doctor?
In this day and age, from what I've just heard recently, there are people who have an interest in medical school. Right. They go there, and because they're in such high demand because of the coronavirus and whatnot. Oh, and also, I don't know if you know this, but there are kids being released from tunnels underneath New York City who have never seen the light of day. They need medical attention. They need it now. So either we don't give it to them because our doctors got to get their degree, or they are going to learn on the job, and we need them now, and they go. So again, there's a big difference between this standard of needing a degree, needing to pass the test in order to be verified by the state, and a reputational score. I gain experience as I do, therefore I am validated based on what I have done.
Okay. My only personal issue on that is that you have to have a foundation in the skill that you want. For example, for becoming a teacher, you have to compulsory to attend a university and get a degree. It's not. Just let me finish. And especially with medical people, medical doctors, they have to have a foundation and then take the 7 or 8 or 9 year course to become a medical doctor. I would not want anybody to look at me or anybody else in terms of a medical examination if they're not properly trained. We have people like that, chiropractors, so I mean, basically. So what you're saying, and I'm trying to understand this, is that you're saying that it's a learn day-by-day skill without having any formal training or education? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so the first part was, yes, that is the way things are today. You have to get that foundation. You got to take those years of schooling, and then you are certified. Right. Second, the preference of a concerned, I guess, prospect or client, right? You want to get medical services. You do not want inexperienced people. And especially if you have the means to afford more experience, that is your preference, and that's what you set, right? You will not get some newbie doctor to handle your heart surgery. Absolutely not. However, if there is a truly free market, you will always have the supply of experienced doctors to handle you. However, for those who are 18, 21, run away from home or on their own and still figuring things out, they're not going to be able to afford those doctors, especially if they've got those expensive degrees. Mm-hmm. But also the experience, right? Those experience comes with higher pay, especially if you've got a great rating, got a great reputation. So there is room for inexperienced doctors to get their foundation in the field as they work on those who are willing to allow the inexperienced, cheap, maybe free, to work on them.
Now, would those people that don't have the experience, would they have a medical degree?
No.
Okay.
Although there's always room for certifications to give you additional authority, to give you additional profile.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
All right, Mr. Gerhardt, that's how you say it? So we've had a problem over, the last so many years of mass shootings in schools. Would you be up for teachers carrying weapons in school if they were all trained?
Yeah. So there's two theories behind why there's so many shootings. One is that the world's a dangerous place, and perhaps those with guns can't be trusted. But the other thought is that there are attacks, malicious attacks that are designed, operated, mercenaries, like hired guns to go in and cause what could be called a false flag or terrorism. But the false flag could also be broadcast media of an event that didn't actually take place. So there's two ways in which the school shootings have been kind of recognized in America. One is that it's a heinous crime, and perhaps we need to remove our guns, everyone's guns. But that's never going to happen. Never going to happen. Not in America. But yes, simply put, teachers, especially if trained, authorized, and certified, should have a means of defending our children.
Okay, now there's been a lot of famous, or I shouldn't say famous, there's been a lot of mass shootings like in Columbine and, stuff like that. Do you know of any that you think that weren't real?
I can't specifically say which, but I do hold that as a possibility for some of these events, especially under the theory that the Federal Reserve is a centrally owned corporation. Private shareholders have the ability to print U.S. dollars without us knowing about it, therefore give it to anyone they wish to buy things, equities, to pay people, to fund campaigns, and then to own the equities and then control the people who go on the board of those companies, so that they can dictate what the company does. If you have control of the US dollar, the strongest world reserve fiat currency, and you have evil intentions, then you could theoretically buy up all the mainstream media corporations, both televised and internet, and broadcast a shooting that never took place.
I just want to do an addendum to the last question that I asked you. You have a degree in finance, and then you went into cryptocurrency. Let me ask you a question. If you didn't have the degree in finance, you went to a college, I'm assuming, correct? Would you have gotten involved in the cryptocurrency?
The butterfly effect, man, I don't know.
No, I'm just asking you a specific question because you indicated to me earlier, in my earlier question, that medical doctors, they'd have to get the experience, on your chart. And the thing is, without a foundation and taking the courses that are taught by other doctors who have the experience, they wouldn't be able to do anything. And in your case, because you did get into that cryptocurrency, you were an investor for four or 5 years, correct?
Still am.
Okay, I apologize. But you have a background in finance. So my question to you, again, is would you have gotten into the cryptocurrency, investment, if you didn't have a degree in finance?
Yes.
Okay, you would have? You would have had the same knowledge of financial issues without the university?
I still haven't been able to implement the put or call options that I learned. There are some things that I definitely value. Absolutely. No, Don't get me wrong. Education is good, and I have learned some good things. But as far as efficiency goes, I would say that the schooling system we have today is inefficient. It's slow. There are many, many children who can learn much faster than what they are currently learning at if they only had access to YouTube videos at 2-speed.
Well, in Nevada, there's the GATE program, which is for gifted and talented students. That's an acceleration right there. So at least we have to give the school district credit. And I do agree with you, the school district is in shambles right now. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I stand to be corrected, I think we're 48th out of 50 states, which is not good.
But just in the focus, just in like the structure of kids taking tests on the knowledge that they've been taught.
Okay. But the insight for a child belongs initially with their family. They can make them aware. I've got one close friend of mine that their children have been homeschooled their entire life by the parents. And I can tell you right now, they know more about chemistry than I ever did. They know a lot about writing books, which they've done. They know a lot about business. And the children were 13 and 10, and they were operating at a grade 10 or 11 level. So it comes part from the family and part from the educational system, which, and as I stated before, I agree with you, Art. The Nevada school system is horrible, and there has to be some changes.
But our governor is donating all of his paycheck to it, and it's still bad. His whole paycheck. This is what he said, at least.
Okay.
$100,000 a year.
Okay. Now to my next question. It says in your bio that you've been doing a lot of door-to-door knocking prior to the coronavirus.
Yes.
Okay. So what are your plans, besides being on Veterans in Politics, to get the word out there on your behalf?
Well, I've got a database of every single voter in the district. So I've also set up direct text messaging. I don't know who I've been talking to, texting for Veterans in Politics, but
that's Mr. Steve Sanson. He's the president of Veterans in Politics.
Well, so I've actually been. I'm kind of a techie, so I also know how to hire freelancers who are very skilled and very reasonably priced. So I set up essentially a business phone number that I receive and interact with all the data on a spreadsheet, on a database. And so there's API integrations where I get a text sent to the phone number, it gets put into the spreadsheet, I write a response, I check mark the row, and it sends the message back. So text message, direct mail, and then I've got some content, right? So a podcast is going to be releasing some content, and then I'm a musician, so I've been writing some songs, and businesses, if cryptocurrency really takes off the way I think it's going to, then the financial capital could also be used to invest in the local economy.
Right. Just a suggestion, have you ever thought of contacting your fellow candidates and having a debate?
Yeah, I already contacted the Republican. So my name is JG, right? John Gerhardt.
Right.
The Republican is Jeremy Graves, JG. He signed up after I did. But I've sent mail to his home, like I just dropped it off, and haven't gotten anything in response.
You haven't got any response whatsoever? Yeah. And what about the Democratic Party?
He doesn't have a Twitter, and I don't think he has a website. And the Democrat Party, I haven't. I'd be open to debate, absolutely, but who's going to be that third-party medium? And especially if you have to endorse one of us, then you couldn't really be that broadcast. And I'm going to put it, I don't think it's going to happen because it didn't happen for the governor's race in 2018.
Right.
After Bundy, after I put Bundy into the clear, right, into the authorized list of people that, was it ABC who was gonna do the one and only debate? Laxalt canceled. And then ABC decided to cancel the entire thing altogether because you couldn't have Bundy versus the Democrat, the independent candidate versus the Democrat when the Republican drops out. Right. It just I don't know, it threw like a wrench in things.
Yeah. I was just thinking, and I'm going to throw this out, and since Veterans in Politics, it's a non-political organization, first of all. Second of all, Mr. Steve Sanson, the president of the Veterans in Politics, does not have a vote in terms of who the party supports. It's people like myself and Giano and a number of other people that have been involved. Probably a good facilitator or mediator of that is Mr. Sanson himself, and going on a YouTube. I would strongly suggest that because you have some interesting ideas. The problem is the Democrats and the Republicans. You have to challenge them. In terms of getting them, all three of you together. That's just a suggestion.
Yeah. If they want to. I just, based on what I've seen, there's a lot of intention not to be known, not to be seen, and not to be recognized in order to fulfill your donors' demands without the people knowing about it.
And I think because of the situation we have in the United States and all over the world, I think the voters would be very entertained by not just your, not just your part of the election that you're running in, but other parts like you're running for assemblyman, and for county commissioner, for state senator. I think it would be an interesting concept, to start off, with you, and then keep on going, a momentum for all the candidates to use that format.
Well, so one of the things that the mainstream media has done is get everyone's attention focused at the very top, the president of a union, and kind of paint the picture that he's essentially the leader of a federation. And so what Trump has really done, especially recently, he's gotten a lot of like union talk, right? And especially with like resources, the union's resources, medical supplies, ventilators, whatnot, being the backup, right? What he's really done is help the people start to lower their gaze onto, the more intimate parts of government, because it's really our government's huge, right? As far as our state government is big, especially, our educational department employs the most out of any part of it. But then all the state governments and the union, it's a massive series of machines working to supposedly serve us, or it's supposed to, right? Serve us. But because our focus is just on one aspect of this massive operation, the people are really letting a lot of their local candidates slip. The real winner, so to speak, the real good person, if there is one, to choose from, does not get chosen because there's no attention whatsoever on any of the candidates. So you just go with whatever your party tells you to vote for. Right. And party line has been what kind of has been moving this country left and right. But hopefully this is the year where everything breaks down and people start looking around and they see someone like me who's running, against a Republican and a Democrat. And they decide not to vote for their Democrat, not to vote for their Republican, because it's no longer a matter of which party is right, but it's more about which candidate is the best.
That's what it should be.
Always.
Okay, so earlier you talked about, you said you were homeless for a little while. How do you feel about the homeless, the new law that took place last year with the homeless? And, where the Las Vegas is basically banning them and, not allowing them to sleep outside. But then again, they don't have enough beds in the shelters.
Right. So the state of Nevada is supposed to be serving the people, not pushing them around. So the law is really draconian. What really should be happening, the governor should be really leveraging the power of the Department of Health and Human Services to provide as good a living standards as possible. It's not expensive to get some shampoo and some toothpaste and some toothbrushes, and help the people really get a foundation, right? A place where they can at least get by and then start to build, as they learn, a better life for themselves. So even like a shelter's nice, but it's still a social program where, okay, you're going to get people to become dependent on that shelter or nothing for when? The rest of their lives? When are they ever going to work themselves out of it? We need to remember that this is a free nation with rights that really are limited. And so on one hand, we need to keep people from getting pneumonia when it rains. But on the other hand, having all the basic necessities taken care of without any additional support, especially when it comes to education, to assist them, to give them the ability to grow and become self-sustainable, independent. it's a fine line to walk. But still, pushing people out is really not the way to go. Instead, give them the ability to earn for themselves, because the Strip has been a big center for tourism, and because there's a lot of people, that's where there is revenue. That's where there's money, financing, liquidity flowing. I stay away from money because I don't call the U.S. dollar money, because it doesn't have the properties of money, more of a currency. But still, there is very likely an imposter who has taken control of our government, at least our state government, for far too long. So just simply put, I'm against this whole pushing homeless people around the state in an effort to maximize economy and gentrification.
Okay, great. So the other day I was watching the news, and I noticed now with this pandemic going on, they're throwing up tents, and they want to, of course, help out the homeless, because of course if we don't stop the coronavirus within the homeless, but we stop it within everybody else, then it's going to come back, on all of our citizens here in Nevada, right? So is it fair that now, they want to help them out, and they want to, I don't know if it's pretend to care, or if they're doing it, of course, because of the pandemic. Don't you think they should have did it before, instead of us having a pandemic to shelter the homeless?
Well, so are they? I don't know about the sheltering of the homeless, but I know that the tents were designed for those who believe they have coronavirus to go and get tested. And just from what I've seen, there's not been a whole lot of people rushing in to get the tests. At the same time, there's a lot of news broadcasting that they're just swamped and full and all this stuff. So as far as helping the homeless, I have a digital mentor, who's just really heavily looking into this coronavirus. He calls it a bioweapon. It was genetically engineered and then released on the public. The Communist China Party has a lot of darkness within them, and just taking it back to say the coronavirus, it is thin, it is very tiny particles, and they do flow through the air at great distances, and once you catch it, it can really break down your body. However, the best way to defend yourself is to increase the amount of vitamin C in your body. The vitamin C is not something we naturally produce, which is why we eat the oranges and just foods that are rich in vitamin C. But having that as a high level in our body will actually prevent the coronavirus from multiplying in our body and then taking us down with some third-party disease. So if I were to take care, and what he also recommended is something I would agree with, the best way to take care of, especially our homeless, but our people, is to provide vitamin C and make vitamin C a free handout in many places, an economic freebie, so to speak. And that'll keep us healthy, right? That'll keep this coronavirus from really spreading. Because if our bodies are hardened, it doesn't matter if it comes to us, it won't go very far, and it won't spread and multiply like it can in those people who don't have a lot of vitamin C, don't have a lot of vitamin D, right? Don't see a lot of sunlight because they're either in their house all the time, or you know what I mean? So it's about understanding what this is, what it does, and the best solution for it. The tents, there's two theories that I know of. One is, the coronavirus and the mainstream media is just trying to spread a pandemic to get us all to fear because, again, of the dark energy of those who control central banks around the world, like evil energy, potentially, likely. And they're their ownership over things, and so they're basically war machines. They're assets to try and degrade us. As we wake up, if we wake up and we realize who the real enemy is, these few people who have done horrific things on the macro level, they won't be able to. There's nowhere they can hide, and they will lose their lives. In which case, we will come out of this, the coronavirus, which could also be undercover for the attack against the deep state, like the actual finally the offensive against this deep state. If we really come out of that victorious, we're going to have it's like a parasite has finally been released from our society. You know what I mean? That's just like this mind fog behind the scenes, like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, shadow, like just extracting collectively from us, the people, since the Romans, so it could be huge.
One thing, so to touch base on the vitamin C, so I know for the last at least 15 years, anytime that I felt that, I was getting sick and I was about to get the flu, I would take the vitamin C and it would knock it out 100% of the time, as long as I took it in time. The problem being is with the coronavirus, we don't know yet, is it a bad flu? What is it, right? So it's kind of invisible. It's an invisible enemy. We don't know. Is it going to help? I've watched a few videos and it does say, I believe you could take up to 75,000 milligrams, I believe, per day. And, they say it will help. Will it? We don't know. I guess we'll see.
I'm taking 500 milligrams a day. 5 of those, 100 milligram pills.
Yeah.
Every day. It's a lot.
My next question is, Governor Sisolak literally donated $750 million to the Oakland Raiders, or now Las Vegas Raiders.
In government subsidies?
No, in the basically flat out fee, basically to bring the Raiders to Las Vegas.
$750 million.
Yes, sir, and that was to build the stadium.
But not liquid cash from the Treasury?
That I don't know, but there was $750 million passed on to the Raiders. And also, in turn, the Raiders were provided with a number of acres of land in Henderson. You would be familiar with that. It was valued at $1.5 million. The Raiders then turned around and sold it for a profit of about $4.5 million. So, secondly,
who wrote the contract?
The governor, probably. But the thing is that
he betrayed us again.
Yeah, well, not just us, everybody in this state, because almost 3 weeks ago, Sisolak came out with that he was closing down mom and pop operations. The casino workers, 250,000, were going to be laid off. Some of the casinos have been providing very sufficient amount of money for a lot of the laid off workers. But my major concern, or my primary concern, is the mom and pop operations. Instead of donating $750 million or providing the Raiders with $750 million, he should have had another plan in play already, but he chose not to.
He's probably just doing what he's told.
Yeah, basically relying on the federal government to bail out our mom and pop operations. And we're running out of time. If you have about 2 or 3 minutes to respond to that. To the question, what would you have done in terms of when Governor Sisolak informed all businesses, non-essential businesses, to close?
What would I have done if I were Sisolak?
Right.
During the time when he...
Yeah, it was almost 3 weeks ago that Sisolak ordered the non-essential services. Would you have come up with a plan, for the businesses in Nevada? And these are the people that got him elected.
Well, Governor, that's deep. No comment.
Okay. Okay. No comment. You wouldn't come up with a plan in terms of supporting our local businesses here in Las Vegas and throughout the state?
Okay, sure. Yes, I would have. I would come up with a plan.
Okay.
That plan unknown yet, but
okay.
As far as the okay, so the Oakland Raiders, that was many years ago, and then the what he's doing today, me versus him. It's night and day difference again.
Yeah.
New constitution.
It's a filter down. When Sisolak says, you know what, we're not having any businesses that aren't essential open. Yeah, come up with a plan, because a lot of these.
Well, I think he's checkmated. To be honest, I think he's like his crimes. I don't know if you know, but there's big reason to believe he's embezzled money as a Clark County commissioner, and he's also conducted acts of pedophilia against the daughter of a Henderson public servant. And I think this is kind of that checkmate where there's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to turn to. His bosses are caught, and he is next in line, and there's going to be a transition. He either took he probably, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I think there's a fine line between where this is going, but it I don't know.
Okay. Gianno, we've got about 7 minutes left if you have a question, because we have to give an opportunity at the end.
Legislative branch, lower house.
Okay, so in the NFL, in the last few years, there's been a lot of kneeling during the national anthem. How do you feel about that, and why do you think that the players were kneeling?
I think that they are being mentored and coached by some people who have some macro allegiances against the president. I think I think that Donald Trump truly is like a not cabal, person, not an evil. He's a really good guy, and he's been like playing a thin line and taking this all the way to the final stage, which was presidency or bust, and bust would have been World War III and complete destruction of our country. And he is being attacked by those people who intended to destroy our country. So those people have influenced, because again, the control of the central bank, they've influenced many A-list players. This is also the redheaded lady who holds the beheaded head of Trump, and you've got many of the music stars and the acting stars, well, also the sports stars. Those people who have talent but also were allowed to be A-list players have an allegiance to a dark entity that wants to destroy not just Trump, but us as well. So
okay. All right, so my next question is, it's going to be, I'm sure you're willing to do anything to protect your family. Do you have children?
No.
Okay.
I got 2 pups.
You got 2 pups. Okay. You do have family, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And are you willing to do anything to protect them, if need be?
Anything?
Yeah. Anything.
Gosh, that's really open. That could lead to some
okay.
Really
Is there
places.
something that you're not willing to do to protect your family?
Genocide?
Okay.
I'd let a family member die to save the human race.
Okay, perfect. Now I got a question. If the pandemic got so bad here in United States, and you had to illegally cross into the northern border into Canada or the southern border into Mexico to save your family, would you do that?
Oh gosh, what was so bad here?
Well, I'm saying if they said we had 72 hours, we got a pandemic going on. So let's say the pandemic got so bad, and they told us we had 72 hours.
Vitamin
to leave.
C, hunker down.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gerhardt, look into the camera and tell the electors why you should be elected for District 12 State Assembly.
It looks like the Republican and the Democrat are both corrupt. It looks like the Democrat incumbent is deeply tied with Joe Biden based on her Twitter profile. and all the, I don't know, she was born in, 1966. She wears the red. She's, it just seems like she's, corrupt. And then Graves, Mr. Graves, Jay Graves, I believe was pushed to run against me in order to dilute my name. And so if things run as they always have, it'll be, the good guy being me drowned out by the guy who's got the name similar to me so that the Democrat can win. That looks like their plan. And if you truly want an authentic person who is going to represent and serve you, the people, I'm really the only person to vote for.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of Veteran in Politics, we thank you very, very much for coming down here. It has been most interesting. Thank you.
You guys are like the only guys really doing stuff like this, and I appreciate it.
We appreciate it as well. Thank you very much for your time, sir.